SEC assistant coaching shakeups that will definitely affect the Vols. I want to start with, if I may, Trooper Taylor to Texas A&M. Trooper Taylor, now I know there had been talk about potential NCAA issues is why he kind of got sent to Arkansas State. But that wasn't really the case. The guy loves his family. He got to coach his son. His wife got his her doctorate there. So he goes to Texas A&M. Basically, he took 5 years in the middle of his career, which I commend him for, Caleb, to say this is best for my family. That's what I'm going to do. So he's at Texas A&M. I'm sorry, but if Trooper Taylor is a part of your program is better. I think that's a very solid hire.
That's a great hire. Now, this is one that's going to do wonders for Texas A&M because I think Mike Elko is a guy who's just a really smart, analytics Harvard type coach that you guys know I'm a huge fan of. I love it, but he needed recruiters to get him the talent. Texas A&M has the NIL collective. We know that. So Trooper Taylor there is going to be a huge advantage. I don't know how much it's going to hurt Tennessee. I just think they're recruiting different guys most of the time. You could tell me more about this, Dave, but I know everybody wants to freak out about Walter Nolan. That's the exception, not the rule. Typically, Tennessee and Texas A&M.
I don't think it hurts Tennessee, but I'd be really curious if Trooper Taylor could coach defensive backs.
I mean,
you see what I'm driving at? I know he's an offensive coach. I know Trooper well. He's an offensive coach, but you would get the equal recruiter.
Just imagine if he had been
having Willie Martinez and take it a step further. Everybody says Tim Banks is heavily involved in the secondary. They're not giving Willie Martinez the contract extension as of yet. I guess that should come out every day. I would call Troop and say, listen, when you understand the passing trees on offense, sometimes it can make you a better secondary coach. And it doesn't happen a lot. What I'm inferring is a bit of a reach, but it's not the worst reach in the world, is it?
No, it's not. As a matter of fact, Trooper Taylor, I think he's coached defensive backs in the past. And more importantly than this, from a recruiting standpoint, Trooper Taylor's not just successful at landing recruits. There's another layer to this. And this is kind of a Rodney Garner. This is where Rodney Garner is so skilled, Dave. And I think it's very underrated when you're a little bit behind the eight ball. Trooper Taylor is superb at evaluating talent. I mean, you covered his role on recruiting for Tennessee. He was the one who scouted Randall Cobb, wasn't he?
Oh yeah, he wanted him from the get, and they didn't offer him till 2 weeks before signing day. It was like January the 10th, maybe 3 weeks.
And Cobb was barely a 2-star on anybody's radar for a while. Trooper guys was the one who discovered him and knew how good he was going to be. Was Trooper the one who discovered Patrick Willis? Because I know Tennessee
that would have been before his time. That was when John Chavis determined that the future Hall of Famer wasn't fast enough to play in the SEC.
What it yeah, that's right.
No, that was what Troop can't lay claim nor credence to that whatsoever. But no, he did evaluate Randall Cobb, and he was absolutely right. He the guy knows ball through and through. And, Troop's never had a drink in his life. At least last I've talked to him, never.
Yeah, he seems like is he a very religious dude or?
Yes. Yeah, he is. Yeah. So I think that would have been, but let's get some other ones. What are some other moves? In particular, the South Carolina move, I just get the feeling that the book's out and probably has been in coaching circles about Shane Beamer, that he's not the best head coach to work for. And because he's probably a little bit not detail oriented, Billy Napier, and I think he's kind of show, and I don't think people like that. So they have 2 assistants from A&M, whoopity doodah, and then they've still got 2 more positions to fill. That's still not good for the Gamecocks.
No, not at all. They added running backs coach Marquell Blackwell from A&M this past weekend. Also, they've got offensive assistant James Coley, who is going there from Texas A&M. But former tight ends coach Jody Wright, that's the one loss that you can't. He left to become the head coach at Murray State, but he scapegoated, for instance, Montario Hardesty, former Tennessee running back. He fired Montario Hardesty at the beginning of January. I mean, I don't know why you fire a running backs coach who's a great recruiter. What do you like? Again, you and I don't know this, Dave. On-field coaching with running backs is not that important, and Monterio is a great recruiter. So that's a blatant scapegoat move, isn't it? To say that this is not my fault, it's my staff, and I'm changing the staff, so we'll be okay.
Yeah, especially a running backs coach. What the hell is he doing? I mean, if he can't teach pass pro, then he shouldn't have gotten hired in the first place. And running backs run to green. That's not that difficult. So. Yeah, if you fire a running backs coach who's known as your great recruiter in the middle of the season, yeah, it's just to try to get some people off your back.
That's exactly what it was. So South Carolina is in big trouble. I agree. The bottom's about to fall out. Before I get to Georgia, by the way, Washington offensive coordinator Ryan Grubb is going to follow DeBoer to Alabama. That's why Jed Fish took the job at Washington. I want to get to, before I get to Georgia, something's going on at Auburn, guys. You remember when Hugh Freeze threw his staff under the bus, right? For his Music City Bowl loss?
I think I know what this is before you get really conspiracy deep.
Let me just say,
as a matter of fact, from talking to somebody over the weekend, I'm pretty sure I did. But go ahead.
I'll just say this publicly real quick, what we do know. Hugh Freeze said he's going to take over play calling duties after he threw his staff and blamed his staff for losing the Music City Bowl. Cadillac Williams has now stepped down. Now, Cadillac was considered a very crucial part of Auburn when Hugh Freeze took over. So something's weird there, Dave. You tell me.
Was Cadillac handling play call duties? Do we know that for sure?
No, I don't think he was handling play call duties.
Yeah, it was their goofball head coach. I can't remember his name all of a sudden. That loved to run 4 tight end sets.
The head coach? What are you talking about? Hugh Freeze is the head coach.
No, the former head coach, not Freeze. The guy that was before him.
Brian Harsin.
Yeah, he handled their play calling before, and then you would think Hugh Freeze would have done last year. Here are my thoughts. Cadillac Williams was hired as a coach. Can you check and see how far he goes back when he was hired at Auburn? Because I think Cadillac Williams is a guy that if you don't like in the beginning and you're hired at Auburn and you have all these dalliances with escorts, you don't have a lot of leverage to say, I want this Cadillac gone, who's one of your all-time favorite players. So I think that Hugh Freeze probably wanted to make that change from the get and have all of his own guys. And he wanted to wait a while until he won some boosters over. Whether or not he has, I don't know. But that would be my thinking. And you don't have to fire a guy like Cadillac. You just have to kind of not invite him to some offensive meetings, to be real honest with you. When was he hired at Auburn? Did you find that?
Yeah, he was hired at Auburn by the old coach. He was hired in he was hired by Gus Malzahn in 2019. So he stayed through Malzahn and Brian Harsin and Hugh Freeze. The weird part about Hugh Freeze is the person he relieved, the offensive coordinator, the one he was taking over play calling duties for, was Philip Montgomery, who coached at Tulsa. And I believe, Dave, he is a Gus Malzahn protege, Philip Montgomery is. So, or no, he's a Art Briles protege. That's who he is. He's an Art Briles protege. So Philip Montgomery was calling the plays under Hugh Freeze. It was weird that Hugh Freeze hired him to begin with if Hugh Freeze wants his own offense. If you take over play calling duties and make this shift 1 year into your tenure, something's not going right usually.
I think you probably wanted to get rid of him before, and they said it'd be bad PR. Can you just keep him around for a year? That's
Cadillac. No,
okay.
I'm talking about the offensive coordinator that he hired last year that's no longer there. He brought in Philip Montgomery. Montgomery's gone for 1 year, and he's taken over play calling. Fine, but why did you bring in Philip Montgomery to begin with? The Tulsa coach who was a Art Briles protege.
Those guys that are very involved with the offense always have issues. Gus Malzahn and Hugh Freeze. It seemed like 1 year they'll say, hey, I'm going to come out and I'm going to call the plays this year. I'm taking more control of the offense. Then the next year they'll say, hey, I'm going to hand it over to this guy. I think he'll do a better job. And so it kind of goes back and forth. We'll be interested to see if it ends up continuing like that.